Welcome everybody to Girls Who Print Day. Happy Girls Who Print Day. I hope that if you have been, hanging out with us, that you've learned something. I've learned something today. I thought that last panel was really good. I love the morning panel. Actually, I love them all. There have been amazing comments and everything that's going on here. As I mentioned in the first panel today, this conference is really reality based. This isn't about like some fictitious, eventually we will all do this and eventually we will all do that, because honestly, I don't eventually know what I'm going to be doing in an hour from now. That's how much it changes, let alone tomorrow or next week or anything like that. But even before the pandemic kicked off, the industry was having a severe issue with hiring young people, hiring women, and especially hiring people of color. And when I say problem, I mean that in my personal opinion, and from what I've witnessed, I don't see a lot of active forward motion of finding women and finding people of color and young people to come join the industry. It's more like, who do you know? And who do you know? You know people just like you. It's a sociological thing. I'm not making this up. If you look at studies, it was even looking in my LinkedIn connections, because I was trying to be so diverse and inclusive. And I'm like, oh my God, I do it myself. It's unconscious, but I'm trying to make it conscious. Anyhow, I wanted to focus this panel on future leaders of the industry who are our guests, our panelists, and what their thoughts are on what this industry needs to do before it's too late, before we can't get anybody like them to come and stay. And I think it's really important to hear from them versus us interjecting and projecting the way we think things should be on them, and to really listen and learn. So with that being said, just very quickly, my name is Deborah Corn. I'm the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse and girl number one at Girls Who Print. And my co-host for this panel is Kelly Mallozzi. If you could just wave to everybody. She is the sales coach to the stars at successinprint.net. She helps all businesses in the graphic communications chain create more sales. I mean, quite honestly, that's what she does. She's also girl number two at Girls Who Print. And as I mentioned previously, thanks to the generous support of our sponsors, the Girls Who Print podcast will ride again. It is now funded to next year, thanks to our partners for this event. So if you haven't visited girlswhoprint.net and clicked on some of those sponsor logos, partner logos, who I'm actually calling them industry allies, because that's what they are. And the honest truth is, what did they get? Nothing. They got to support this initiative, and they all wanted to. So thank you to everybody out there for that. And Kelly and I will bring the podcast to light. So Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you for a bit.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we all should give Deb a little round of applause. She's like a filibuster right now. This woman's been talking all day, and I'm so impressed, because I would be exhausted if I were you.
Okay, but don't make it about me. It's
not about you, but I just appreciate you. So we have four amazing young rising professionals with us today, and it is a great honor to introduce them all. I'm going to start with Emily Simon, who has come to us through just participating in Girls Who Print Fierce Fabulous Fridays and being a part of the graphic arts community in her education. And we are thrilled to lift you all up and lift her up and talk about what is going on with all of you. But Emily is a print professional specializing in business and printing technologies with a passion for customer service. Emily, welcome, and thank you so much for coming. Next up, we have Angie Wishard, who is an account executive at Sea Change Print Innovations. Angie advocates for omni-channel marketing and is a relationship builder and a creative problem solver, which is all in her title, and I think that's all genius. Carla Menendez is a project manager at Revista El Impresor. She creates strategies to develop new customer sales, brand awareness, and loyalty. Thank you so much for being with us today, Carla. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have Karis Kopp, who is the owner of Karis Kopp Media. You have seen her at a lot of the Project Peacock events. Karis helps businesses in print and emerging technology areas tell their stories and engage with their customers. So we are just thrilled to have you all here. Thank you so much for being here.
Seriously, thank you. Thank you all. Really appreciate your time. First question I want to ask, which is one of my favorite questions to ask, is, how you found your way into the print industry. More specifically, was it by choice or was it an accident? Angie, let's start with you.
That is a very good question, and a story that I actually really love to tell. I found my way into this industry 100% by accident. I actually answered a job ad in a newspaper, and that is how that was my first experience with the print industry way back when newspapers were, sought out to find jobs. So I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. I grew up on a dairy farm. After high school, I was not interested in going to a 4-year college right away. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I just entered into the workplace right away, and I was looking for a job. And like I said, I answered that newspaper ad for a receptionist at a printer. And at the time, I had no idea what a printer even did or was. But one of the most amazing things that came out of that experience, even though I was only the receptionist for about 1.5 years, is I met the best group of people that I have continued to work with throughout my entire career. And the second best thing about that experience is that was around the time when LinkedIn and Facebook started becoming more popular. And so I was able to stay connected to those people, even though, like I said, I was only there for 1.5 years. I ended up leaving the printing industry for a while to go on to get my bachelor's degree, and I have a couple years of marketing communications under my belt. And so being able to stay connected with that network allowed me to come back to the industry. And so I've spent the last 10 years now being a part of this industry in various positions. And so even though it was definitely 100% by accident, it was the most amazing accident that could have happened in my life.
Excellent. So many people have that accident answer. Emily, Simon.
Yeah, so for me, it was the same thing. It was really just a happy accident. I had seen my dad go through, some pre-recession layoffs in 2007. And I knew that if I was going to get a degree that I was going to have a job outside of school. So I looked into the programs at Western Michigan University, and supply chain and graphic and printing science had 100% job rate after graduation. And graphic and printing science also offered paid internships. Done. It was done. So I was able to get an internship with Sun Chemical for my first internship in industry. And that was with the customer technical service team. And I knew then that I wanted to be in customer technical service, and, happily found myself there, 3 years into my career, and have just really had some great experiences at different types of printers, at gravure printers, at flexo printers, offset printers, and, didn't know that I was going to fall in love with the manufacturing side of it as well, and the science side of it. And so here we are.
Excellent. And Carla, I am saving you for last for a distinct reason, but Karis?
I, again, fell into it, wasn't a deliberate, avenue into the print industry. I was a journalist and looking for a job my first job in journalism after an internship. And yeah, there happens to be a print industry trade publication in Bristol, where I live in England. And I got the job there, and, you know, I knew nothing about the industry prior to it. And it almost feels like you're kind of opening up a door to like a secret world, which is great, but it's also one of the problems with getting people, you know, into it because they don't know enough about it. But, you know, once I was in, I was so happy to be in. It was really, I found it really, really interesting, really exciting. And I left there, but I stayed in print. I worked in on the public relations side, still writing, and now I kind of do a bit of everything content-wise, anything that helps businesses in the industry, you know, tell their stories. I still keep my hand in on the journalism side when I can, and that's where I am. I have stuck around since falling into it accidentally, like so many people do.
Well, I for one, am glad that you stuck around because you make me look and sound better. So thank you so much for that. Carla, you have a little bit of a different story. I mean, how did you find your way into the printing industry?
I was born into the printing industry because my grandfather founded Printing News magazine more than 40 years ago. So, you know, it was by accident because I was born with it, but I've just started working in the magazine full time 3.5 years ago. So that was by choice. You know, I've always, since I was young, I've always worked part-time one way or another, you know, during summers where I didn't have school or going to trade shows, always, you know, helping the family business. But I decided to go another way. I studied marketing and did marketing for several companies. And recently, you know, I saw the potential in the industry and decided to go back and made this my full-time job.
Well, we are happy that you did, and thank you so much for joining us. Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
The first question I have is for Emily. So Emily, you have such an interesting background. You've run presses, you've developed workflow processes to optimize production, you've trained employees and worked with ink chemists. Have you encountered any pushback because of your gender or your age along the way?
So yes, definitely. And, you know, I think just showing up every day is kind of how I've combated that. And, you know, when I was working the presses, one of my favorite jobs that I did there was actually dry ice blasting and doing the preventative maintenance on the press. And, you know, it was a rush to, you know, to prove to myself and to prove to the men in my department that I could do the work just like they could, and sometimes even better. So it's definitely been part of my experience, but you know, I've also found this industry to be really welcoming, and that's not the main focus.
So I don't know how many of you were on the earlier, the panel just before this, but there was a discussion about kind of standing up for yourself and speaking with your voice, and, you know, the whole, like, I'm speaking, making sure that people, you know, listen to your voice. So the next part of the question is, how did you earn the respect of your team, and what advice would you give to young women out there regarding stepping up and leading?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for you.
You know, again, I think it's just showing up and being willing to do the hard work. You know, I, right out of school, I had the opportunity to take an account management role or to take this management and manufacturing role. And I knew that I wanted to be in account management in the long run, but I knew that I wanted that foundation of running a printing press and a crew and really knowing, you know, ultimately what's important to who's actually making the pieces, you know, to be able to bring that into, you know, an account management role or a sales type role or a more business minded type role. And so I think just showing up and, you know, even when it's hard, you know, you go home and you cry, but you don't cry there, you know? So, in believing in yourself, sometimes I think, you know, that's important. I mean, that's very important. So
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is really, really important, even if you don't believe it. I mean, I've been going to this thing where I just say, "Oh, it's a great day," like, "Oh, everything's fantastic," and I'm like, "Well, maybe it will be. I'll just keep thinking that it is," and that also comes with confidence too. Even I can't even tell you, every time I present at an industry event, I'm freaking out. I don't like doing it. I'm shaking. But the truth is that the people don't know that. If you just kind of just keep going, like, "Oh, everything's going to be fine," they believe you. So I appreciate that you shared that. Carla, I'd like to ask you a question now. Now you mentioned before that you're the third generation at El Impresor. How can the trade media play a role in industry workforce development? And how will you personally, as the editor eventually of this publication, attract young women and people of color to work with you?
Well, I think first, I think it's try to change the perspective on things. When I started at the magazine, it was a little challenging for me because the people that worked there for many years, they had a certain way that they do things, and they tell me, like, this is the way things have been done for a very long time. So that part was challenging at first, but I actually changed the goal of the magazine just to make it better for the whole industry and not for a few. Our main goal is to make people fall in love with printing. It doesn't matter if you're in the printing industry or not. I just want everybody to fall in love with printing. So, and that's one way. And also another way is to, we have a printed magazine, but younger that I'll tell you, like, printed magazines, at least in our case, we like it's still, I'm not going to tell you that it has grown, but it has stayed like strong. So, but there are new media that younger generations and women and, people of color are consuming nowadays. And we need to have everything, we need to have that information available in every media. And, we need to show them, how cool the printing industry is, because a lot of people, I have a hard time explaining myself, what the magazine is about sometimes, because they tell me, "Oh, okay, books and magazine." And I'm like, no, printing is like a lot more. And I want to communicate that. And I think that's our mission as a trade media, not to just see for the industry, but try to like expand that world of printing that is great.
Now, El Impresor started in Mexico, I believe, but you're in the United States. And I just wanted to make a follow-up comment, which is that it seems to me that the industry is compartmentalized. So we have people who speak Spanish speaking to that market. And maybe that is one of the reasons why everything is not so inclusive. There are certainly a massive amount of people who speak Spanish in the United States who own businesses, who could be doing print work, who need information about products and services, who studies show people who that English is not their native language. They will go up to a certain point, but that final financial decision, it's more comfortable for them to understand it and read it in their native language. So how do we maybe get the English-speaking media more involved with the markets that you represent, Carla?
I think, yes, using Spanish also, I know that, we are aware that English is like a global language, not just for Latin America, but for everybody, but definitely Hispanic people, which English is their second language would rather speak in Spanish. But if you cannot do the content in Spanish, that's okay. Subtitles work, anything, or maybe just like, maybe just having just some things available in Spanish, like resources. It doesn't have to be everything translated, but if you are doing like a white paper that's important, translate it to Spanish and try to make it, because I know a lot of people just use Google Translator and that's that, without revising. So sometimes those, you read it and you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, but okay. But yeah, having Hispanic people in your team is very valuable, and they will help you, with this perspective.
Yeah. I mean, everything from making sure that you have those types of people in your booths, on webinars.
So, Carla, I love what you said about one of the best ways to attract young people and women to the industry is to help them fall in love with it and help all the customers fall in love with it. And it is a very poignant and very true statement. And speaking of people who are in love with the industry, Angie, you just exude this energy about your enthusiasm for the company that you work for, which is, it like really is motivating and it really is inspiring. You're so passionate about your new company and your position. So I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about what has you so excited and motivated about Sea Change.
Well, obviously, I do spend a lot of time kind of spouting off about my current company and how amazing it is. And, being a part of this industry has definitely been a journey for me. So I want to start out by saying I have been very, very, very fortunate that every single company that I've worked for within this industry has been great. I've learned so many things from, the beginning of my career up until this point. And I've been in many different avenues. So I've been on the sales side for a commercial printer. I've worked for business, or I've done business development for an agency. I was on the mill side, and I was a paper rep for a while. And when it came down to making the decision to come back to the commercial print side and come back to selling print, I really had to take a step back, and I had to think about the future and what was going to align with my expectations for this industry. And it's so easy for me to talk about Sea Change because it is everything that I was wanting in a company, and everything, it's setting our industry up for the future. And there's so many aspects of this company that do that. I mean, I'm a seasoned millennial, so I'm the older side of the millennials, and there are certain things that are super important to me, and able to kind of, in terms of like what gets me excited to wake up in the morning and come to work. And, a piece of that is technology, right? Like, we should not be an industry that is afraid of technology. Like, it's the world we live in. We have to embrace it. We have to be okay with it. We have to move forward with that. Flexibility, being able to work from home if I want, or being able to come, there are certain like foundational things that companies need to have these days in order to attract younger talent. And I'm very fortunate that I actually have a company like that in my backyard in Minnesota that does all of those things.
Right. Angie, I'm sorry, I just want to interject here because I actually want to take this back to recently you made a decision to change jobs, and I kind of wanted to focus this on that so how did you, and you were perfectly happy with your job and it was a good job, but this is a talk about, careers in crisis. So you had to make a decision about whether to leave a stable job for something new. And Kelly and I were interested in finding out like how you got to that point, and, what did you discover about the industry during your job search?
So, Yes, I was with a very stable company. I did not have to leave my job. It was kind of an odd time to make a decision like that because COVID was just exploding when I did decide to change positions. But in my introduction, I talked about that network that was so powerful, and I've always stayed connected to everybody. I've always believed in, keeping those bridges open, keeping those lines of communication going. And, I was working for a mill. I was working for Sappi, and that was a fantastic experience because it showed me like the larger perspective of this industry from the outside. Because starting at a commercial printer, I was able to actually see I was calling on different printers, right? So I was like stepping into their doors. I was seeing what their culture was like. I was seeing how they were approaching the industry. And there was always in the back of my mind the thought that I would come back to this side. I just didn't know when that was going to happen. And while I was at Sappi, Sea Change was actually my customer. And so I got to spend a lot of time within these four walls, talking to the sales reps, talking to the production staff, talking to the purchasers, and to add on to that, when I was at that original company, Litho, when I was the receptionist, the current president of Sea Change was a sales rep there. So we've known each other for a very, very, very long time. I was just so excited. I mean, while I was at Sappi, I was able to sell Sea Change before I was even here because it was just a breath of fresh air. Like when I would walk into this building, it was like, it's more of like a creative space, like an agency. Like the branding of Sea Change is everywhere. People are laughing just to laugh. Like there's nothing that's forced about this company. And with Wendy's leadership, I mean, being women-owned, women-led in this industry is just something so incredible and so something to be so proud of. And so when I started, I kind of just felt really pulled to this place, I guess. And Wendy and I have had conversations, throughout the past where she's like, you should come work for me someday. And I'd kind of be like, yeah, maybe someday. And it started happening. I was like, I think I'm ready. And I reached out and we started the conversation, and it was probably, a couple months in the making, but it ended up being the absolute best decision I could have ever made. And I'm so proud. Like I said, I have worked for amazing companies. I have no negative things to say about any of them, but my journey has led me here for a specific reason. Does that answer?
I'll just say, I think that I think if we were able to like bottle that and like broadcast it to all the organizations out there to say like, how can we be more like Sea Change? Like, what's the secret sauce to have millennials excited to wake up in the morning and go to work and be really enthusiastic? That's what we want to. And I don't know if we have to crawl inside Wendy's brain or if you have to like twist us around and like and see it. But it really, I guess we'd be looking for some tangible, like, can you describe some things about your workplace that make it a place that makes you feel valued and makes you feel like you want to come to work every day?
And before you answer, I just want to say that one of the reasons that Kelly and I wanted you on this panel is because neither of us have ever seen anybody who loved their job as much as you on social media. And it's not fake. It's authentic. No. It's completely authentic. And you can tell by what she says that it's authentic, and it's not like, well, at this company we do. No, it's personal experience. Sorry, I just wanted to frame it a little more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think it starts with leadership for sure. This is a top-down trickle effect. The culture at Sea Change, we call ourselves Sea Changers. We get excited about working together as a team. Like we're just so proud to wear that badge of being a Sea Changer. And it really truly starts there. I also mentioned, the flexibility, being trusted to do my job, being encouraged to do my job, the personal development. Like having having leadership that truly believes in you and gets excited. I mean, the fact that I was even on this panel today, like I had so many people like getting me plugged in, making sure that everything was going to work great, sound, they're all in the other room actually broadcasting this right now and probably clapping because I'm talking about this. But, and it's like we're a family, and having those relationships and building that network and being proud. I mean, that's the secret sauce, really. It's not about pitting one another against each other or making competition a negative thing. It's about lifting people up and, having a positive attitude, but also, being realistic. I don't know. It's a kind of an incredible experience, and couple that with like flexibility and technology, and we don't see ourselves necessarily as a printing company. I mean, we're more than that. We do so much more for our customers. Yes, maybe that's the center of it, but we really can expand from there. And the future is bright. The future of print is bright, I guess is all I can say. And if we build more companies like this in this industry, we won't ever have to say, no, print is not dead. Like, of course it's not dead. It's bigger than just print.
Yeah. And just to be fair, a good leader comes in any gender, shape, or size. It just so happens that you found an amazing leader at a woman-owned print shop. Just being fair and balanced as we move into the journalist question. Karis Charlotte Kopp de Gaulle. The role of the journalist has become essential to weed out truth from opinion, especially in the United States. I know that you're in England, but I'm just saying, especially here, has become extremely important. Because of it, and having just recently spoken to Mr. Magazine from the University of Mississippi School of New Media and Journalism, I am expecting a boom of students choosing journalism as a career because it has become a noble career. It has become the last line of defense of reality in many senses. Now, looking at even how you accidentally found your way into the industry, now that you've been here and you've been writing about it, how do we get these truth seekers, these truth tellers, these people, these journalists, these people who won't stop until they know the truth and know the whole story about it? How do we get them into the industry? And in your opinion, what skills would they need as a journalist to thrive?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I completely agree. I really hope we do see that boom in journalism students. It's an essential industry for democracy, for freedom, I think. So, it's whatever, whether focusing mainly on the mainstream media then. And that's what I think most people, I don't have anything to back this up apart from my own opinion. So I personally was thinking about the mainstream media when I was pursuing training and career in journalism. And I think that's probably most people's interest. That's how we first engage with journalism and decide we want to write about what we see going on in the world. And as from my perspective, I accidentally fell into B2B journalism, into business journalism. And I think since then, I thought now I certainly think there's absolutely no way I would want to be in mainstream journalism. But, I love business journalism, and you think of it perhaps not as it is, as more boring, as less glamorous. Well, I don't think the rest of journalism is that glamorous either, but it's certainly really, really interesting to kind of sink your teeth into an industry, into a certain niche area. And, I would say one of the most important kind of skills is certainly, something that these people already have, which is, a curious mind, curiosity. I think that's something that with a career in journalism in print, you're always going to have something to learn. You know, it's fast paced, it's exciting, and it's so vast that you've almost got the best of both worlds, because it's you know, it's a niche thing where it's a community and you see the same people and you know, you go to the same events and it feels like you're part of something, but also it's so, you know, expansive that you've always got something to cover that's different. There's something new going on. And, you know, from my perspective, I love history. So I'm really interested in the history of print. You know, when I came into the industry, wow, it's such a rich and exciting history, but I also love technology. And, you know, you've got automation, robotics, augmented reality, you know, industry 4.0, 3D printing, you know, so that's two completely different worlds really that come together in this industry. And I would also say a really important skill is probably resilience, because, you know, it's a difficult time for journalism all around. Like you said, there's misinformation and disinformation, you know, all around. It's the jobs of journalists to try and get to the bottom of that, but it's almost, you know, in some areas it's a losing battle, because it's you know, budgets of outlets are declining. There's you know, people are being squeezed. Is there that temptation for some people to kind of favor the people that are advertising with them because they really, really need the money, you know, and that's another thing that has an effect on impartiality. So I would say resilience in that regard, you know, it is going to be, it is a tough career path, but it's really, really worth it. You know, things are changing in terms, you need to be enthusiastic as well, because you're going to need to probably get involved in lots of different things, you know, whether that's being behind or in front of the camera, you know, interviewing on camera, recording, learning how to present and edit podcasts that you might not have thought that you'd be having to do. You know, so willing to kind of, you know, jump on a plane and cover an event, hopefully, you know, in the future, not too distant future. And yeah, I think just I think it's probably just as difficult to think about going into the print industry as a journalist as it is getting people into the print industry anyway, because people just don't know everything that's involved. But, you know, I would say if you're a curious person, if you're great at networking, you love connecting with new people and speaking and, you know, being part of a kind of business community, I would say it's a really, really, you know, interesting industry. And I think appealing to people based on things that aren't anything to do with perhaps the career, like the travel, you know, oh, you're an entry-level journalist. You can go to your local paper where you'll probably stay, like, you know, in the same city that you've lived in your whole life, if you're me, or you can go into this, you know, business area, and your first job, like mine was to fly to Barcelona to see HP. Like the first week I worked in my job, you know, it's like, you know, maybe if you're someone that wants to travel, maybe that's the avenue you go down. You know, sometimes it's not about beating people over the head with print when they don't know what the industry involves. It's finding that way into what are your interests. You know, we can relate that to this industry, and there will be something for them to relate to them, because, you know, it's print. There always is. So
everybody with a cell phone and a Twitter account thinks they're a journalist. Everybody with a blog thinks that they're an author or a writer. I am very careful in my bio to write blogger. I want everybody to understand that means I don't focus on grammar. I don't focus on, you know, proper structure of sentences and citing resources correctly. I write like I speak because I'm just blogging. How much of that social media and journalism work together now as far as a marketable skill set that honestly people of your young age of under 30 ish, I know I'm making her happy, really need to bring to the table. It's also one of the things I'm always yelling at you that you need to focus more on. So go ahead. Sorry, we're having a problem with Carla. Sorry, Carla, don't freak out.
So you mean how can they work together? You mean to?
Oh yeah, I mean if you're a person coming into the industry and you're going to be a journalist, I have to assume that also means, hi everybody, my new article is coming out, and hi, this is, let me share this, and to your point of being at an event, you're live reporting at the event where you also might be there to do your research, your journalistic research, to provide a comprehensive overview after. Yeah.
And, I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, we're all behind the screens, you have to do that. At the moment we're having to do that. And how many of us have made new connections and, got the message out there about what's going on, or, found out about an event or a webinar, some amazing free thing like this that someone's putting on, and, you can tune in and get access to loads of free information. I think certainly it's something, it's vital, and, outside of the industry, it's vital anyway. It's helped people become, citizen journalists that can go out there and report on anything, which, as you say, is kind of a blessing and a curse, because it can mean everybody thinks, oh, I can kind of get this information out there. So I think from a professional perspective, if you're not on social media, there's what you're doing. There's, you might as well just give up now, I think, because you're not going to progress. You're not going to be able to get your message out there. But I think as well, it's something that I find young people in the industry do really well. Not just young people in the industry, but I think young people are more native with social media. So when they come over into the kind of professional side, they've got it's got more of a bit of personality in there. And I think that's important. Authentic personality as part of your social media brand, because it is a brand. If you're out there on social media, that's your personal brand, and you need to think, what do I want this to be? Even if you're a journalist and you're representing your company, you're still yourself. So you need to be engaging in the way you want to be perceived. And if, I think young people do that really, really well, because it's natural to them. It's second nature to be on social media. And I think it's vital to this industry as well, that we, look at what you've done with your social media platform, and at events, it's, everybody's always sharing and liking, and it's because it's engaging, relevant information, but it's, with a bit of personality. It's not just, a corporate tweet, we've signed off this, is this okay? It's engaging. And I think that's really, really important.
I appreciate what you're saying there, but and I'm glad you brought it up, because there's the big distinction. I am talking about something right at that moment, and then I am on to the next thing.
Yeah.
People like you have to stick. You have to tell the stories. And, something that I think we've all noticed is that telling the stories of customers has become so important, versus corporations telling their own stories. Have other people tell their stories, especially now. How have you been treated during the pandemic? How have you stepped up? How have you helped your community? And all of those other things. I know that we're getting towards the end of time. I want to see if Kelly has any follow-up questions or comments before we let our panel go.
There is just one thing, and it kind of builds on something we talked about at the career panel a couple of years ago, Deb, and that's words that we use to describe ourselves in words. So I'm going to, just an observation, and again, this is for the broader audience too. I think it's interesting that Angie mentioned that she was fortunate, that she had all these great jobs that she had worked with. And I hope, Emily, you don't mind me saying this, but Emily and I were having a conversation a week or so ago. And fortunately for her, she's in a situation where she was fielding multiple offers for her next job. And she was talking about how she felt so honored, and what I said to her, and it was really interesting. I said, men don't use words like that to describe. A man doesn't say he's fortunate. A man doesn't say he's lucky. A man doesn't say he's honored. And I just, I don't want to be too militant about it or anything, but I just want to make everyone aware of it, that we need to be careful about the words we choose, because we do deserve to be here. And it's not an honor to receive multiple offers, girl. You deserve it. So those are my final thoughts. You guys were amazing. This was a really great discussion. It looks like Emily has something she wants to say.
Well, and Lori in an earlier panel said it really well, I think. She said, I worked hard to feel that way, you know, and, you know, it's the resiliency to keep after it, you know, even if, you know, you might not feel it. So
yeah,
I appreciated Lori's comment earlier.
Well, I just want to, Carla, we saw you coming in and out. Yeah. So sorry that you had difficulties. I just want to thank everybody so much for joining us.